The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me.
Just so slow.
Do you think that you could repeat the question?
I feel like the internet is broken.
The internet is broken?
Yeah, like the last couple of days, everything is slow.
I have felt that as well.
Email is slow, the internet is slow, Facebook is slow, everything. My phone is going slow.
And I must have missed something when you were just talking to me. I must have not been paying attention when you were busy slamming the door.
I'm actually almost happy to be here today.
Almost happy?
Yeah, almost.
I'm almost offended by that.
Next week I might get there. Next week I might be actually happy to be here.
But you're here with me.
Well, listen, that's the one good thing about coming here.
Right.
It's just getting here is such a project.
Yeah.
Because I've gotta get up, I've gotta get dressed, I've gotta take a shower, I've gotta get down 2 flights of stairs, and get into my car.
I mean, this is why I text you.
Right.
Make sure you're up and you're moving. Full service here.
It is not as easy as it sounds.
I don't just produce him for a podcast. I produce him for life. Get out of bed.
Yep.
Come to the studio.
And as I said, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes getting out of bed is the hardest thing I do all day.
Hey, I may as well do it at the top of the show. Don't forget to come on down to Sadie's Bar and Grill here in Salem, New Hampshire tonight, 6:30, Music Bingo. Come and see me.
Absolutely.
It's a fun night. Watch me dance around like a fool, and you can maybe win some prizes.
I saw you and Carrie doing a video. Carrie, my
oh yeah, Miss Carrie Whelan.
My spirit animal. I somebody can't know. Gina Tell is my spirit animal. I got to come up with something for Carrie. I'd say she's my soulmate, but I think she already has one of those. I saw that video and I was like, two of my favorite people getting together doing good. Nothing made me happier than seeing that. All right, I guess we should stop the show. Should we? I don't know.
I could listen to Mel all day. But...
Listen, me too. Me too.
But yeah, probably should, I guess. Well, wait, he's almost done this.
Right.
Part.
Well, that gives me time to actually pull up my sponsors.
There you go.
Too.
Did you share the show?
I did, yes.
Good job.
For once.
All right, here he goes. He's almost done. Except for the secret ending.
Right.
We can skip that part today. You got a lot to say.
I do have a lot for once. Hey, how you guys doing? My name's... Can we just start the whole thing right
No.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan here at the Paying Attention Podcast. Hi, atop Two Guys Smoke Shop at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Now, all I can do whenever I say podcast is think of Katie Leclerc, one of my big fans, one of my biggest fans out there, who loves the way I say podcast. She's always sending me stuff about when I say the way I say podcast. So every time I say it, now all I can think about is her. And how much I appreciate having fans out there that watch every podcast, listen to every podcast. They read the paper. They follow me on Facebook. When we sponsor charitable events, they go, they contribute. They either donate food to TMF or they donate, money to veteran charities and all of that. So I appreciate all of them. But some I love a little bit more, like Katie, because
how could you not?
Exactly, because that's just the kind of guy that I am. Plus, she's kind of hot, too, so I always give extra points.
I was waiting for that.
I always give extra points for that. I want to thank Century 21 McLennan Real Estate. We've got to get Sam. Now, next week, we can't have Sam in next week because we have a really good guest next week.
Oh.
Next week, we're going to have...
No offense, Sam.
No, what I mean is, we can't have him next week because we have somebody else who's going to be a really good guest.
Yeah.
It just kind of totally came out wrong.
Yeah, that was great. We can't have him because we have a good guest.
Are you sure we can't start this over?
Nope, this is all going on the blooper reel. We're fine.
All right. So next week, we're going to have one of my favorite communists. Jonathan Guzman. Now, I'm sure he's going to not like the fact that I called him a communist, but I say it with love.
Okay.
He is diversity, equity, inclusion. He's on the Lawrence School Committee, and he's in with all of the left-wingers. He's all for all the diversity, equity, inclusion, white privilege, white privilege. He's one of those guys. But you got to love him to death. He's a really good guy. He believes what he says he believes in, which is why I admire him greatly. Listen, just because I don't hold your worldview, just because I don't agree with you on your political views, it doesn't mean I don't like you. In fact, for the most part, I'm not going to like somebody if they pretend to be left-wing or right-wing and they really don't walk the walk, if they don't really believe what they say they believe. But Jonathan Guzman really is a left-wing lunatic, and I'm a right-wing lunatic, and I really admire the fact that he kind of puts himself out there. He's very far left, and he's very active in the community, and he doesn't just believe stuff. He goes out and he tries to make it happen in real life. He goes out and he joins boards, he joins organizations, he goes to every event. There is no event in the city of Lawrence Jonathan Guzman doesn't go to. So he's going to come here next week. He's going to be talking about the new school superintendent, Ralph Carrero, which is going to be a great conversation because I served with Ralph on the school committee back in, I'm going to date myself, 1996, I think. And he's going to talk about the new turnaround plan. This is going to be the first time that a school system that's been taken over by the state is going to be turned back to the community. The control of the school is going to get turned back to the community. So maybe after that, we're going to have Sam and Matt from McLennan Real Estate Century 21. And at some point, we really want to get the matriarch of the McLennan Real Estate Century 21 in here, but I don't know if we're ever going to be able to get on her schedule. She's a very important, very busy person. Zany Pesci Law Office, Marsant and Son Construction, EIS Investigation and Gun Training, who, by the way, EIS Investigations, Private Investigation Service, is now on the payroll. They're now on the Valley Patriot payroll. And we've been using them for a number of things. And boy, let me tell you, I had no idea the level of information that private investigators had access to. I had no clue that hiring a private investigator gives you access to a whole bunch of stuff that, like, even I didn't think I was going to be able to get. And it's been very helpful, and we'll be talking about that in a future show. Oh, thank you so much. That is wonderful. I'm not even done reading through my sponsors, by the way. We're just going to do the whole show on sponsors. Borelli's, actually, Frito, shut up. Borelli's, Part 28, and Time Out Sports Bar. We've got to get back up to Time Out Sports Bar. Wednesdays, they have, I think it's 99-cent wings or something like that, all you can eat wings. So we're going to try and get up there on a Wednesday. Tomo and Shaken Seafood. Clear Path for Veterans New England. Clear Path for Veterans New England, helping homeless veterans. And we're going to be talking a lot about them in the next couple of weeks. There's some things that I want to talk about that for legal reasons I can't. But we're going to have somebody here, maybe Jason Gilbert will come in from Clear Path. We're going to talk about some of the housing needs for veterans that we're going to be helping in the Merrimack Valley. And AFC Urgent Care, Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, and a free shout out to JG's Ice Cream because we love the Jafrida brothers. All right, where do we go first? We got a whole bunch of things to get to. Let me just start off with the Field of Honor in North Andover. Will be closing ceremonies on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Fucking 10 a.m., man. It just kills me. It just kills me. Like, all these events that go on in the morning, especially on the weekends. So I wish I could say I was going to be there, but if I say I'm going to be there, my stalkers will show up. So I'm not sure if I'm going or not. I have to have my advanced security crew from Riders Don't Play show up first, and then text me to let me know if it's safe to go.
Right.
At least for 12 more days anyway. Put June 24th on your calendar, folks. After that, it's gonna get real fun. What else? At 10 a.m. Field of Honor in North Andover, and they're gonna have their guest speaker is a Valley Patriot Hero Veteran Award winner from this year's bash, Eric Ryan, who won the John Radke Hero Veteran Award. So that's going to be a great event. And if you would like to sponsor a flag or purchase a flag, you can do so. Go to the Valley Patriots website, valleypatriot.com, and click on the Field of Honor, and you can get a link from that page. So, all right, what else do we have here? So we had a bunch of things that I really wanted to talk about today. I don't know how much time we're going to have to get to all of them. Let's see. Field of Honor. Okay, so we've got one local story, two national stories. Let's go with the national stories first. Donald Trump convicted of something nobody knows, nobody cares. Really, nobody really cares at all. The people who hate Donald Trump want to see him executed for parking violations. The people who love Donald Trump would continue to love Donald Trump even if he walked into a mall and shot 45 people and killed them all and then peed all over their bodies. It doesn't, nothing matters. None of this stuff matters. All right, so Donald Trump got convicted. What did he get convicted of? Well, it's really kind of silly if you ask me. And by the way, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, so this isn't me just making excuses for the guy that I'm voting for because I'm not voting for him. I'm voting for RFK. We're going to do a whole show on that over the summer. But what did they convict him of? They convicted him of he paid a lawyer to pay a porn star to keep her quiet about allegations that she was making. We don't know if they were true or not. If you hate Donald Trump, you think, of course, they were true. If you love Donald Trump, you think, of course, they weren't true. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they were true. Whether they were true or not had no bearing on this trial whatsoever. This kind of stuff, by the way, happens with celebrities all the time. Happens with politicians all the time. Some woman from a guy's past will show up out of the blue and say, he raped me, he sexually groped me, we had sex, I had his love child, whatever they're about to accuse, and they use that accusation to extort money from the famous person. And every famous person that you know, from Dave Chappelle to Angelina Jolie to Puff Daddy Combs to Lisa Lopez, what's her name? Jennifer Lopez. Every celebrity that you know, every major celebrity has dealt with this. There have been volumes written about it. There have been books written about it. It's actually the reason why the National Enquirer exists. Because there are always people who are looking to find a way to extort people who are famous. Now, that's not to say that some of those accusations aren't true, right? We remember with Woody Allen when the Enquirer broke the story that Woody Allen was banging his underage stepdaughter. And, of course, he denied it, and all of his friends denied it, and his publicists denied it, and they threatened to sue the National Enquirer. But at the end of the day, it turned out to be true. And then you've got, Dave Chappelle and a few others. Dave Letterman, remember? Somebody tried to extort him, a woman that he was having sex with. He was having an affair on his wife. And she tried to get money out of him to stay quiet. So the Democrats and the CNNs of the world and the media trying to make this like this is this outrageous thing that never happens. That Stormy Daniels was looking for money to keep quiet about an accusation that she had sex with Donald Trump while he was married. Now, do I think that he had sex with her? I really do. I think he was having sex with everything that moved. He's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. And women love to have sex with billionaires. You know why? Because then they get to extort them for money. And again, just Google any billionaire, any celebrity, you're going to find 20 stories on each of them of women that had sex with them. You look at basketball stars, football stars, Wade Boggs. We could go down the list 100 ways. At the end of the day, what did they get Donald Trump on? So he decided to pay her to shut up. And again, that doesn't mean that it was true. I kind of think it was true, but it's not proof that it's true. A lot of times guys get accusations and they pay just to make it go away because it's not true. And they don't want to get in trouble with their wife or their family or their kids to read it. So in order to pay her, he wasn't going to write a check to her. He had his lawyer negotiate with her lawyer how much money she wanted to shut the hell up. And then he gave his lawyer the money, and the lawyer took his percentage and gave her lawyer the money. And then, by the way, her lawyer kept all the money. Was supposed to pay her and never paid her, which is why her lawyer, I think his name was Avenatti, went to jail for that, okay? But now they're trying to put Donald Trump in jail for actually making what they're calling the hush money payments. It's hush money as if somehow that makes it bad. That makes it horrible. Ask any member of the Boston Red Sox, the Boston Celtics, the Bruins. They deal with this on a regular basis. People making accusations and wanting a payoff to shut up. And it's one of the reasons why you never want to be famous. People, all the time I say to people, I never want to be famous. The more fame you have, the more chance there is somebody's going to try and extort you. The more chance there is somebody's going to try and set you up. Because everybody wants a piece of what they think you have. And so that's what they convicted Donald Trump on. They convicted him of a paperwork mistake. because they say that he put it down as a legal expense instead of, I don't know, a hooker expense. Like, I don't understand what they wanted him to do with this. They wanted him to write down on the expense like hooker expense, porn star expense. Like, I'm not sure what it is they wanted him to put down. And by the way, the judge has total conflict of interest on this. I think this is all going to be thrown off over on appeal. But I think the reason I'm bringing this up today is not so much to go through what I think most people who follow the news every day already know, but those of you who don't, maybe a good synopsis for you, is that none of it matters. None of it. None of it matters. And, the Democrats who want it to matter are all beside themselves that after he got convicted, he raised $54 million, the most ever of any presidential candidate ever in the history of humanity. Raised $54 million the next day in 24 hours after the conviction. So how did that work out for you Democrats? How did it work out for you? Didn't work out too good. And now they're running around saying he's a convicted felon, as if that means anything. As if that means anything. It doesn't mean anything. There was nobody out there who was going to vote for Donald Trump who, now that he's a convicted felon, are going, I don't know, he's a convicted felon. There's nobody. There's not one person in this country who was going to vote for Donald Trump who's now not going to vote for Donald Trump because he's a convicted felon, as if that means anything. Because we all know that the Justice Department has been weaponized. And if you don't believe me, those of you on the left, that's not true, Tom. Tom, that's right-wing conspiracy. Well, what are you crying the day after Hunter Biden got convicted? The left is now saying, it's a conspiracy. No, it's weaponizing the justice system. And ever since Hunter Biden was convicted, Donald Trump made a statement that if he gets elected, I'm going to paraphrase, that if he gets elected, he's going to flip the tables on the Democrats and he's going to use the Justice Department against them. That he might go after Barack Obama. That he might go after Hillary Clinton. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And CNN and the Democrats are all running around like it's the end of the world. Can you believe what he said? Can you believe he said he's going to weaponize he's going to get revenge? Wait a minute, you people told us he's a Nazi, he wants to exterminate Jews, he wants to put blacks in chains, he wants to put blacks back into slavery, he wants to get rid of the Constitution, he's a fascist who wants a fascist government, and now you're shocked that he wants to use the Justice Department to get even with his political enemies. It goes to show that these people don't really believe anything they say they believe. And for me, this is more of a commentary on the media than the political parties, although it certainly says a lot about both political parties. Because the same people who were saying that the Justice Department is rigged in the Donald Trump situation are all cheering, saying that the Justice Department got it right under Hunter Biden. It kind of reminds me of the Supreme Court ruling that came out today on the mifepristone, if I'm saying it correctly, the abortion pill. There's a headline that the Supreme Court has now said it's legal to use this abortion pill. That's not what they said at all. It's not what they said at all. All they said was the person who brought the suit has no standing, so they threw it out. They didn't rule on the merits of the case at all. It's not what you heard on CNN this morning, but that's what they said. But isn't it interesting that it was a unanimous decision? Because when Roe versus Wade was overturned, we were told that the court was stacked to the right, that there were 6 justices on the right that just did whatever Donald Trump told them to do. And yet here we have a unanimous decision in favor of what the Democrat position is, and it doesn't comport with the ideology that's being promoted on CNN and MSNBC every day. So guess what CNN's not talking about today? They're not talking about this. So let's get back to Trump and Hunter for a second, because this all goes together. I call bullshit and shenanigans on both sides. Both sides are lying to you. Both sides are lying to you. The people who say that the Justice Department is too weaponized and it's a rigged game because Donald Trump was convicted are now cheering that the Justice Department convicted Hunter. And now the Justice Department is sacrosanct. Now what they said is etched in stone. See, he's a convicted felon too. So you get 2 convicted felons. You got Donald Trump's a convicted felon, as if it matters. You got Hunter Biden, who's a convicted felon, as if it matters. And in fact, I think the Hunter Biden thing matters even less. I'm a right-wing lunatic. I'm going to keep qualifying that. But I can tell you that I break with all the other right-wing lunatics when it comes to Hunter Biden. all the right wing and the Republicans, and I'm not a Republican anymore because I hate the Republicans even more than Democrats now. But all the right wingers and the Republicans obsessed on Hunter Biden for the last 2 years. The laptop, the crack, the drugs, the hookers, the Burisma, the Ukraine deals. Couldn't give a shit about any of it. I couldn't care less. You know why? Because Hunter Biden having sex with hookers has nothing to do with whether my taxes are going to go up next year. And Hunter Biden having some deal with Ukraine has nothing to do with whether or not kids are going to be indoctrinated with political beliefs in school systems. Those are the things I care about. I care about getting homeless veterans off the streets. Hunter Biden smoking crack has nothing to do with that. So when normal people like me go to vote, we vote our own interests. We vote the issues we care about. If you're a left-wing lunatic, you might care about abortion. That might be your number one issue. If you're a right-wing lunatic, you might care about the border. That might be the number one issue for you. But neither one of those two number one issues have anything to do with Donald Trump being a felon or Hunter Biden smoking crack and having hookers in his hotel. None of it. So here's the real question. Why is everybody talking about it? Why is CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and Newsmax, I have to start including all the other fringe news stations now because now they're all actually getting more viewers than CNN. Newsmax now has more viewers than CNN, believe it or not. And OAN, One America Network, and Al Jazeera America, and all of them. Why are they spending 24/7 talking about these issues? Well, I don't know exactly why they're obsessing on these particular issues, other than to say that they're distracting you from something else. I don't know what that something else is. Could be the border. It could be there's another terrorist attack coming. It could be anything. I'm not proclaiming to have the answer to that question. But I am proclaiming to tell you that there is an answer to that question. That whenever the media, if you remember before 9/11, what was the American media obsessed about? I actually have done lectures on college campuses about this, and someday I'll come in and I'll do the whole thing just for fun. What was the media obsessed on? They were obsessed with Lindsay Lohan drunk driving, Charlie Sheen coming down with AIDS and getting caught with hookers by the police. It was the Chandra Levy scandal. She was an aide for a Congressman, Gary Condit, who the media painted as guilty, painted him and railroaded him in the media as guilty of killing her. And then it turned out to be an illegal alien that killed her years later. This guy never got his life back. But prior to 9/11, every story on the news was some kind of salacious, celebrity, Hollywood-type story. The news had become the National Enquirer, and oddly enough, the National Enquirer had become actual news. The National Enquirer was breaking actual news about politicians, like Gary Hart, and by the way, Joe Biden. And the actual, what was supposed to be the actual news, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, it was all just celebrity bullshit. And then 9/11 happened, and we all looked around and went, whoa, why weren't we paying attention to this? Why weren't we paying more attention to the fact that there are like 1 billion Muslims on the planet who want to destroy us and kill our families? Why did we pay attention to all these terrorist groups in the Middle East getting together, unionizing basically, and making us their common enemy? Why weren't we paying attention to that? You know why we weren't? Because the media was saying, look at the shiny object. Look over here, Lindsay Lohan got arrested again, drunk driving, Charlie Sheen, right? Gary Condit. Everything was the National Enquirer. And here we are about 23 years later, and we're right back where we started. We're right back to Chandra Levy and Charlie Sheen and Lindsay Lohan, except the names are different. It's Senator Menendez, and it's Britney Spears, and it's whoever else. And that's why I believe that the media is so obsessed with talking to you about Hunter, and by the way, Hunter Biden and Donald Trump, and they're obsessed with Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump 24/7. But none of it matters. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden. Now, I don't believe for a minute Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. I think the Democrat Party is going to pull him at the convention. He's going to come down with some mysterious stroke or something that we all know is going to be contrived, and they're going to stick somebody else in there. Because they're looking at the numbers. They know Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump. He can't. Even with them cheating, he can't beat them. He can't beat them. He can't. Even with the cheating, he's not going to be able to beat Donald Trump because even blacks and Latinos now in droves are leaning Donald Trump. Because no matter how much the Democrats and CNN tell you that the economy is good every 5 minutes, the economy is great, unemployment is great, the economy is wonderful. We all know that we're paying twice as much for meat at the deli counter. We all know that we're paying 3 times as much for our groceries. We all know that we're paying $1.50 or more a gallon for gas every day. And the economy is not great. You know what the economy is great for? Illegal aliens. That's who the economy is great for. If you're an illegal alien, you got it made. You pay no taxes, you work under the table, and if you commit a crime, the judges let you out the back door. I sat in Lawrence District Court about a month ago, not even a month ago, for my case that we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. And I watched felon after felon after felon walk out the door, and I couldn't believe it. I kept sitting there going, I hope I get this judge. Like, whoever this judge, I hope this is the guy in charge of my trial. Because there was a guy there that he had committed like 3 really major offenses, and they let him go. And I'm like, holy crap. And this is going on all over the country. But if you're a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen, you're the one getting screwed. Those of us paying taxes, and by the way, you know, some of us pay our taxes, some of us pay them late, but we pay them. We're on the hook for paying them. The illegal aliens aren't on the hook for paying them. Now, the Democrats, just to shift topics here for a minute, the Democrats in Massachusetts have, I'm not sure what kind of sleight of hand is going on here, but I'm going to put this out there, and I'm going to try and make some phone calls to see if I can't find out a little deeper about what is happening. But Maura Healey and the Democrats are throwing illegal aliens out of homeless shelters within the next 90 days. 150 families in Massachusetts have been given a 90-day notice to leave the state's emergency assisted family shelter system. And they've got to be out by September 29th. Now, I guess families that have like minor children and babies, they can get an extension. And there are some exception cases where they can stay, but everybody else is supposed to have to go. Now, I don't know if this is good or bad. I'm not making any moral judgment on this whatsoever, because on the one hand, they shouldn't be getting these services. Americans should be getting these services. On the other hand, you're throwing them out into the street, and now people like TMF have to feed them. Now those who are out in the streets who are trying to just do something good for humanity have to pick up the slack after the state welcomed all these illegal aliens in. Quite frankly, they should be getting put on planes and sent back home. That's where they should be going, but they're not going to do that. You see at Logan Airport, you've got thousands of illegal aliens sleeping at Logan Airport every night. You're already at the airport, put them on a plane and send them home. But if you're not going to do that, you don't want them roaming the streets, and you don't want them hungry. Because if they're hungry, they're going to... Listen, we're all human beings. If I ended up homeless and hungry tomorrow on the street, and I have to break into a car to steal somebody's pocketbook to buy food, that's what I'm going to do. That's what any of us are going to do. So throwing these people out of shelters, not too sure it's a good idea. And by the way, not too sure it's a bad idea either. But I'm just putting it out there for you that the Democrats in Massachusetts are going to be throwing out more than 4,000 families onto the streets. They will be allowed to reapply, but they're going to have to get back at the back of the line. I like that system. At least that's what Boston.com says. And so I'm going to go with that as though it's true for now. We're going to dig more into it. Another thing in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts I want to talk a little bit about, and that is a housing bond bill was passed by the legislature this week. And I saw a bunch of people on Facebook who have, I guess, projects that were in the bonding housing bill for the state, celebrating that their project is going to get funded. I think the celebrations are a little premature. Here's why. First of all, it's a borrowing bill. It's a borrowing measure. So even if it passes the House, passes the Senate, and it goes to the governor, most bond bills die at the governor's office because it means she has to borrow money to pay for the bill. And given the finances of the state right now, where they're taking in less money than projected, I don't know that the governor, even this governor, is going to want to borrow more money for an additional housing bill. The other reason why I think it's a little premature for anybody to celebrate this housing bill being passed through the House is that it only passed through the House. Now, when I grew up, we had Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. So it went through the whole process of how a bill becomes a law. A spending measure is just a bill. It follows the same process. And even though you're at the state level, not the national level, it still follows the same process. So any spending measure has to originate in the House in Massachusetts. That's your House of Representatives. They get elected every 2 years. Then it goes to the Senate. Now, if the Senate passes the bill, but they change it, let's say the Senate gets the bill and they say, we like this, but we want to add an extra $1 million. Or we want to subtract an extra $1 million. Or we want to add something in for homeless veterans that's not here. Or we want to subtract something for an after-school program that is here. If they change the bill and then they pass it, it can't go to the governor's desk for approval because in order to go to the governor's desk for approval, the same bill has to be approved by both houses. So if the Senate changes the bill, it has to go back to the House. The House gets the new bill that's been changed, and they get to decide, do we want to approve the changes that the Senate made in the bill or not? Now, if they say yes, they approve the bill. It goes to the governor, and the governor decides whether she wants to sign it. And after she signs it, she then has to decide whether she's actually going to do the borrowing that is required for that bill. But what if the House says, no, we don't like the changes? So it passes the House, it goes to the Senate changes it, they send it back to the House, and the House says, no, we don't like the changes. Then what happens? Well, now you're at a stalemate because the House and the Senate have passed two similar bills, but not the same. So it goes to what's called a conference committee. You get 3 members of the House, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, depending on how they structure each individual bill. But usually it's 3 from the House, 3 from the Senate. They get together for a reconciliation, and that's where all the bartering happens. I'll change this if you change that. I'll give you this if you give me that. We'll give you this for the veterans if you give us this for the after-school program. And they come up with language that they promise will be acceptable to both houses. Once they, and by the way, sometimes that takes 6 weeks or more. Once that occurs, if that occurs, sometimes they come out and say, we can't come up with an acceptable language for both sides. And you know what happens then? The bonding measure dies. It's gone. And sometimes they start over with a new bonding bill and they try and do it again, which happens over and over and over. This is why government moves so slow. But what if they say yes? They say, okay, we've come to an agreement. We like this new language. The Reconciliation Committee, the senators go back to the Senate and say, here's our new language. The House members go back to the House. They say, here's our new language. And then it goes to the governor. And now the governor has to decide whether she wants to borrow the money, because that's what a bond bill is. It's a borrowing measure. While they're raising taxes and they're cutting services and they're cutting schools, and there's no money for homeless veterans and there's no money for homeless Americans and there's no money for community policing, and they're cutting the EPA, the Department of Environmental Protection, and they're cutting all kinds of government state services because there isn't any money. The governor has to decide, A, to sign the bill, and she could sign the bill and then not do the borrowing, which means everything dies until some future date, when things get better, maybe. Or she signs the bill and agrees to do the borrowing. And then it depends on our credit rating and what the banks are going to give us. And sometimes the state will go to the banks and say, we want to borrow $1 billion. And the bank goes, yeah, we're not giving you $1 billion. We'll give you 2/3 of $1 billion, but we're not giving you $1 billion. And that means everything has to go back to scratch to see what they're going to cut. So do you see why I say people that were on Facebook the last couple of days celebrating this bonding bill because they have some kind of pet project in there are celebrating a little prematurely? It seems as though you should probably wait till your chickens are hatched before you celebrate. And nobody knows that more than I do, because I rewrote the state's public records law. I had to do it 4 times before we got it passed. And at one point, the House and the Senate both agreed to the language in my bill. And I actually sat down with the left-wing lunatic communist Senator Jamie Eldridge's office and worked out a reconciliation with them, because I'm a right-wing lunatic and they're left-wing lunatics, and we came up with a really great friggin' bill. Let me tell you, we came up with a great bill. And I got to give him a lot of credit. We don't agree on much, but Jamie Eldridge came up with an idea to force municipalities to put all of their spending measures, all of their budgets online, so people like me who are in the journalist field don't even have to submit a public records request for those things. They're already online. To put all of the arrests and police departments online, to put almost everything that your local government does online, so we don't have to submit a public records request. But you know what happened after we came up with this really great reconciliation? It got killed. And then we had to do it again. And then we had to do it again. And then we had to do it a fourth time. And thanks to Diana DiZoglio and Jim Lyons and Katie Ives and a bunch of Jamie Eldridge and a lot of other really great reps and senators, Bruce Tarr, we did get it through. We did get it passed. Charlie Baker signed my bill. But we celebrated when it first passed the House thinking, this is it, we're good. And then it got killed in the Senate the first time around. And then the second time around it passed the House and it passed the Senate. But when it passed the Senate, it was a different language and it went back to reconciliation and then it died. And our celebration was a little premature again. So I think the theme of today's show is be careful what you consume in the media or online because most of it is wrong. Most of it that is right, most of it is wrong, but that of which you see that is right is usually irrelevant. Like, it's true that Donald Trump got convicted. It's true that Hunter Biden got convicted. But it's all irrelevant. The stuff that they're telling you that's true doesn't really mean anything. And everything else they're telling you isn't true. And most of what you see online isn't true. And even when it's people who are involved with, whether it's nonprofits or organizations or whatever, who are online celebrating things and saying things are happening when they're not happening, you got to be really skeptical of what you're seeing. Because so much of what's going on out there is a grift. Almost all of it is. The media is in bed with a political party. And the other political parties are in bed with Wall Street. One political party is in bed with the drug cartels. The media is in bed with the drug cartels. You've got all kinds of so-called nonprofits out there that are certainly not nonprofit. And you've got a lot of people out there that are pretending to care about the poor and the downtrodden, most of whom are elected officials who don't give two shits about the poor and the downtrodden. And you as an American citizen have to sift through all that baloney. And that's why I'm here. All right, so we will end the show with that. I want to thank our sponsors, Century 21, McLennan Real Estate. We'll try and get roll up Mel. We're going to try and get Sam and Matt in here again.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We want to get Janet in here, too. I had a brain fart at the beginning of the show, and I couldn't remember her first name. The Zanny Pesci Law Office. Always appreciate Janet. We have to get Janet Zanny Pesci in here again. Marchand & Son Construction, EIS Investigation and Gun Training, now on the Valley Patriot payroll, by the way. Time Out Sports Bar in Haverhill, free shout out to them. We got to get them back on the program now. Tomo and Shaken Seafood, Clear Path for Veterans New England, one of the few nonprofits that helps homeless veterans, that takes nothing off the top. They file all their financial disclosure forms when they're supposed to. And 100% of what you give them goes directly to the veterans because they get grants to pay for their overhead. Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, AFC Urgent Care, and JG's Ice Cream. And Sadie's tonight at what?
6:30 tonight. Music bingo. Sadie's in Salem, New Hampshire.
And what's the cause tonight?
End 68 Hours of Hunger. Sends kids home with food over the weekends.
Melvin Taylor says you got to go home, so go home already.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.